Pete here with the Small Business Resource Center and the Small Business Resource Center YouTube. Just wanted to give you an important update. Last night, the House Democrats passed the new HEROES Act. Okay, so the question is, what does this mean for you? Sadly, it probably means nothing. The main reason is because the Republicans in the Senate have been trying to negotiate the $2.2 trillion package to $1.5 trillion, then $1.6 trillion, and they wanted to give an additional $500 billion just in case there were additional problems. But the Democrats are pushing for this much larger bill, and in order for this to happen, basically the Democrats can pass it in the House, but then it goes to the Senate. And the Senate's basically, if they don't agree, they won't pass it. The Senate is mostly Republican, and they've been the ones negotiating for the smaller bill, what they feel is essential with the extension for more funds that are guaranteed if needed. So since the Democrats are pushing this larger bill, there's probably a very good chance that this will not pass the Senate. And then even if it passes the Senate, it would have to go to Congress, then of course to the President to sign. So sadly, there's probably a case where this will not go anywhere. But it did pass, so this is important news. And if you're not aware of what the HEROES bill has, I'm going to go over all the details right now. One of the most important details, I think, for the HEROES bill that I mentioned before is a simple fact that they did have a $50,000 provision for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which before had a $10,000 EIDL grant. And that $50,000 provision is called the Lifeline Grant. Keep in mind I did say the word grant. So instead of a $10,000 EIDL, you would get a $50,000 technically EIDL. So it's supposed to cover up to 180 days of expenses for your business. So it's similar to like a $50,000 PPP loan, even though they're not calling it that. But it does state in the bill that it's used for whatever the EIDL is used for or the PPP is used for. So when this program comes out, well, hopefully they'll make it available for everybody. And the main reason I'm saying that is because a lot of you I know have applied for the EIDL, gotten turned down, did not get the grant, did not get the loan, and your business is struggling. So I actually do have a petition, by the way. It's going to be the first link in this video. The petition is for getting the $10,000 EIDL for everybody, and it goes a little bit beyond that. So if you got a chance, click the link, the first link in this video, to go over that. Now I'm going to go over the rest. But the $2.2 trillion HEROES Act would give $1,200 per person, and that's not just people who are standard taxpayers. They actually recognize the fact that there's a lot of people that are in our economy that did not qualify because they are married dependents, and those people are also included this time. And there's also $500 per dependent, and it's supposed to also be adult dependents also. So that would be included. PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, and Unemployment Compensation, $600 per week. Up to the election, actually after the election, January 2021. Housing assistance, $309 million, basically goes to rural renters to help them. And then $400 billion to renter assistance agencies. And then basically they would have temporary vouchers for people that are struggling right now but don't normally qualify for housing assistance. And $50 billion for low-income renters, $500 billion for seniors, $750 billion for housing projects, and $45 million for disabled, and then $5 billion for people being at risk for being homeless or that are currently homeless. So that's what's in this current bill. We also have $21 billion for homeowners, housing agencies, for forbearance programs and mortgage. That means if you're paying a mortgage, they're going to assist you with that. And also they wanted to improve the program by giving it, I don't want to call it an edge, but by fixing it, I should say, because of the simple fact that the past banks were not giving forbearance programs that were good for a lot of people. What they were doing is having them 3 or 6 months on a forbearance, and then basically what would happen is the total amount would be due at the time of your forbearance period. But what they're trying to do is what the original intent was is to put it on the back end. So that means if you try to pay off your loan, refinance, or your loan is at the end of its term, then you'd have to make those last 3 or 6 payments. So that would be an improvement, of course. For state and local governments, we're looking at $436 billion and $236 billion, for the state, and $179 billion for local, $9.5 billion for tribal regions, and $9.5 billion for territories of the United States. $1 billion for community development. The FDA would get $1.5 billion. The census would get $10 billion for COVID expenses and $40 billion for the delay of the census. And I did comment before, and I'll do it again. I'm not sure why they need that, because I had saw a lot of articles in the news saying the census has been completed. So if it's completed, why do they need this money now? Just, I don't know if you can tell me, but yeah. So the Patent and Trademark Office would get $95 million. NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, $392 million. Federal prisons would get $620 million. Violence against women would get $375 million. Second chance grant for prisoners. I find this is a positive thing. $250 million to try to help people when they're getting out of prison, which honestly I kind of think that's important. For the simple fact that prisons don't reform people. They're not really designed for that. It's not really, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree, helps people get back on their feet. It actually seems like it causes them more problems. And that's based on a lot of statistics and doing research. If you see how prisons work in a lot of different countries, they actually help get people, back into society rather than causing them problems. Pandemic response to COVID in jails is $600 million, and the National Science Foundation gets $2.9 billion for research for coronavirus. $100 billion for Legal Services Corp. Election security is $3.6 billion. So I don't know if that's necessary, but they want to put $3.6 billion for election services. FEMA gets $1.3 billion for the coronavirus. Health and Human Services, $249 billion. And the CDC gets $13.7 billion. Nurses strike team basically would be mobilized in areas where the coronavirus is bad. And some people might say, well, that might not be necessary, but I'm kind of using common sense here. Cold and flu season's right around the corner. It usually spikes when it gets cold. So common sense would say there might be an uptake in the coronavirus coming very soon. If you're a high-risk person, I would recommend being a little extra cautious. Now, I'm not paranoid. I feel I'm a pretty healthy person, but if I was high risk and cold and flu season's coming around, there could be a spike in the coronavirus. We got to use some common sense here. CDC is getting $13.7 billion. Oh yeah, I said that one. $128.4 billion for family and assistance, and a second round of PPP. The second round of PPP would be limited. They would limit the large businesses from taking advantage of this. They would also include nonprofits for being able to use the PPP currently. They're also planning on targeting assistance to independent restaurants and owner-operators, which is good. $45.55 billion to airlines. Amtrak would get $2.4 billion. Essential worker funds, so they don't get laid off. $75 billion for testing, tracing, hospitals, treatment of coronavirus. Money SNAP for WIC, Women in Crisis, SNAP, and for farmers to help with food aid. Health insurance, people who lost health insurance during work basically would get financial assistance or health. $225 billion for schools and universities. $12 billion to expand broadband in rural areas. $120 billion grant money for restaurants. $1.4 billion salaries for childcare, lodges and expenses for hotels and stuff that are having problems. and operations affected by COVID. $50 billion for small business grants, $3 billion for minority-owned businesses. But there doesn't seem like there's additional funding directed toward the $10,000 EIDL grant that I found. And I am using my notes from last time, so sorry about that. But I'm trying to doing these videos does take a lot of time. So if you would do me a favor, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It would really help me out. Mainstream lending would be expanded. Workplace safety for CDC guidelines, tax credits for employees on payroll, and suspended payments for student loans to September 30th, 2021 with no accrued interest. So that means you don't have to make any payments and there's no additional interest till September 30th, 2021 for all federal student loans. They also wanted $15 billion for the post office, so they're calling for that again. And in this is also safe banking for cannabis. I'm a proponent of that. But, I'm not really so sure if it should be part of the HEROES Act because it doesn't have to do with the coronavirus. But, it's in here, so I'm telling you about it. So keep in mind, this is a $2.2 trillion bill. Just got passed by the House last night. And basically, not really sure if it's going to pass the Republican Senate. I don't think it is because of the fact that, well, I'd have to say that the Republicans are trying to be flexible and fair, but the Democrats are focused on getting more money to a lot of people. Not really sure if they need all the money. The information that the Republicans are providing says that they don't need all this funding, but the Democrats are just saying give them the money. And I'm not saying you people watching this. I'm talking about states and all these government agencies and all these other agencies that are getting many, many millions. That's what I'm actually talking about. Of course, a lot of people and businesses are struggling, but you got to keep in mind, unemployment has stated that they have about 16% of the people that they know that got approved and PUA that are not getting their money. These are problems the states need to correct. They know the problems are there and they're not correcting them. This happened, 6 months ago, 7 months ago? Well, when it started. And still, many people have not been getting their claims paid even though they're filing. So there's a lot of problems that need to be fixed. I'm not disputing any way that the businesses and self-employed people, as well as people who are unemployed, need help. But when you're looking at it, do all these bigger companies or state, federal agencies need many millions of dollars? That's the question that the Republicans are asking, and maybe we all should be asking that. Well, anyways, this did pass, so I'm going to have more than one update today, I'm sure. It's October 2nd. It's Pete with the Small Business Resource Center. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and thank you for coming back. Have a great day.